Welcome to our CFP Exam Prep podcast, where we dive deep into essential exam topics. Today, we're focusing on ethics and professional conduct, a critical component that typically represents around 7% of your exam, but influences every other section. Let's break down the fundamental concept of fiduciary duty, which is often misunderstood by exam takers. A fiduciary duty requires you to act in the best interest of your clients at all times. This means placing their interests ahead of your own, even when it might result in lower compensation for you. Many candidates mistakenly think disclosure alone is sufficient to handle conflicts of interest. However, the exam expects you to understand that disclosure is just the first step. You must also manage or eliminate the conflict whenever possible. A common scenario you might encounter on the exam involves a client asking about investing in a product that would generate higher commissions for you compared to a similar, lower cost alternative. The wrong approach would be to simply disclose the commission difference and proceed with the higher commission product. The correct response requires evaluating whether the higher cost product truly offers additional benefits that justify its selection over the lower cost alternative. Professional conduct in client communications is another area where exam takers frequently lose points. The exam often presents scenarios where clients make requests that seem reasonable but might violate professional standards. For instance, a client might ask you to backdate documents or make informal adjustments to their financial plans without proper documentation. Remember that any modification to client agreements or plans must be properly documented and dated accurately. A key concept that often appears in ethics questions is the principle of objectivity. This requires maintaining professional judgment free from bias and conflicts. Many test takers struggle with questions where personal relationships or previous business dealings could compromise objectivity. The exam wants you to recognize situations where you should recuse yourself from providing advice. Communication scenarios on the exam frequently test your ability to handle confidential information appropriately. A classic trap involves questions about sharing client information with family members. Even if a client's spouse or adult child requests information, you must have explicit authorization from your client before sharing any details. The exception is when you have a reasonable belief that financial exploitation of a vulnerable client is occurring. When studying for the ethics portion, focus on understanding the 7 principles of CFP Board's Code of Ethics and Standards of Conduct. These principles are integrity, objectivity, competence, fairness, confidentiality, professionalism, and diligence. The exam often presents scenarios where multiple principles appear to conflict, and you must identify which principle takes precedence in that specific situation. One effective study technique is to create your own ethical dilemma scenarios and work through the proper response using the code and standards as your guide. This helps develop the critical thinking skills needed for the exam's application-based questions. Remember that ethics questions rarely have obvious answers. The exam is testing your ability to analyze complex situations and apply professional standards appropriately. When in doubt, always choose the answer that best protects the client's interests and maintains the integrity of the profession. Look for answers that demonstrate transparency, documentation, and clear communication with all parties involved. These concepts aren't just theoretical. They form the foundation of a successful financial planning practice and will guide your professional decisions throughout your career.